Hello and welcome back to the Simplifiers podcast, where we take topics in business and in life and simplify them. Now, friends, I want to talk about that nasty little N word that comes up in business so many times, and that word is networking. Why does it get a bad rep? We're going to figure it out, and we're going to simplify it down for you today. My special guest today is Tara Bradford, and she is a publicity strategist, a reputation designer, and an international speaker. She's worked with everyone from startup founders to Inc. 500 executives to help them increase their visibility and become the center of influence. You guys, this girl knows PR, and if anybody that I can think of that could be an expert to bring in to simplify building relationships, it's her. Get this, her background is in cognitive neuroscience, biochemistry, psychology principles, emotional intelligence, oh yeah, don't forget neurolinguistics and nursing, all wrapped up into one. So Tara, I cannot wait to dive into this conversation with you. I'd like to welcome to the Simplifiers podcast today, Tara Bradford. Hey Tara.
Hey, thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
I'm glad you're here as well, because I really want to dive into what it takes to really build strong relationships as a business owner, as a salesperson, and really start to boost those word of mouth referrals for your business. Can we break all that down?
Absolutely.
Okay, so let's start. First things first. Why is it that networking gets such a bad rep? Like, when somebody invites you to a networking event, you sort of have that moment of like, oh, cringe. Do I really want to go? Why is it that we struggle with this at times?
It's so true. And I think ultimately it comes down to whether or not you're an introvert. And I think if you're cringing and the thought of being around 100 of your closest strangers sounds not fun to you, then you might be an introvert. And it has to do with feeling like your energy is being drained. Yeah. When you are in those situations. So you come home after going to the event, you have a stack of business cards, you feel overwhelmed, exhausted, and you don't know where to begin with following up with these people. And when you do follow up, maybe nothing happens. So you're wondering, what is the point of meeting all of these people? Mm-hmm. And if you're an extrovert, you might be thinking, oh my gosh, I feel so energized after. But you probably reach the same point where you're like, what's going to happen next? Mm-hmm. And if you do follow up with people, you might have the same thing happen where nobody gets back to you or nothing really comes of the relationship.
Mm-hmm. And that's it. Like, what's the point? Like, I'm spending another 3 hours on a weeknight out, and who knows who I'm going to meet out there. I as a person who owns a business, but also I'm a mom. It takes, it's got to be good that I'm taking that time away from my family to be out on a Thursday night, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So why is it so hard sometimes for us to talk about ourselves? So you're at the networking event and somebody pulls out the question, what do you do? And you go, how do I squash that?
That question is so hard to answer because it's a way for people to try to figure you out. And once they figure you out, they don't have any other questions to ask. So if you answer, what do you do with your job title? So if I say I'm a publicity strategist, then they think, oh, I already know a little bit about PR. I have you all figured out. I put you in this box and I don't have any other questions. Mm-hmm. And that's the ultimate killer of new relationships because you are crushing that initial curiosity and basically ending the conversation. It's like a dead end.
Right, because people are immediately trying to judge and place you in that box and go, oh, not important to me, I'm moving on to this. Oh, not important to me, I'm moving on to this person, right?
Right. Ugh. And when you want to be memorable, they've actually done research studies. They studied waitresses in restaurants, and when they were delivering orders, before the food was delivered, they could remember exactly what every single person ordered. But after the food's delivered, they forget because they're on to the next thing. So if there's a loose end that hasn't been tied up, or if there's something that we haven't figured out, then we're more likely to remember it. So the goal at a networking event is not to be figured out.
And
because you want to be memorable.
right. And not to fall into that trap yourself of initiating conversations by saying, "Oh, hey Tara, what do you do?" So
Right.
tell us about a better way that we could lead ourselves and present ourselves at networking events.
A better way to lead would be to initiate the conversation, whether you're an introvert or an extrovert. This is hard for both people. So if you're one or the other, don't be thinking like, oh, well, I'm not outgoing or I'm shy, so I can't do this, because both people struggle with
Yeah.
the same thing. We just approach it in different ways. And so be the first person to speak, but don't be the first person to speak about yourself.
That's
Be the first person to answer a question or to ask a question.
that's a really interesting approach. Okay, so what is a better question to ask a brand new person I've never met rather than what do you do?
I would ask, what are you excited about right now? And do it with a smile and be excited, because that's going to set the tone for the entire conversation. Number one, people probably aren't asking that question very often. So you are disrupting them having everything figured out and having their pre-programmed response. But also, if the other person is nervous, now that nervousness has turned into excitement. And nervousness and excitement come from the same place. It's kind of an adrenaline rush. The same thing as if you're about to get on stage and speak and you have stage fright. Whether you're excited about it or nervous about it, you feel that same butterfly feeling in your stomach. So you have the opportunity to shift that into excitement. Whereas when that person decided to come to the event, they were probably dreading it just like you.
Yeah, well, I can speak for only myself. I'm an extrovert. However, when I go to networking events, I am the same exact way. I'm like, oh, I scan the room immediately and I try to see if I see at least one friendly face, one person that I know. And then I make a beeline straight to them. And if I don't have anybody that I recognize, I make a beeline straight for like the buffet or to get a drink or whatever, right? Because I'm like, oh, okay. But I love that idea of asking, what are you most excited about? Because I think that that's a whole different conversation. That's a whole different way to spark things new. I wonder, culturally, is that more well received in American cultures versus kind of where I'm at over here in England? I think if I pulled that one out, people would look at me like really strange. Like, what? What's this American girl about? Like, do you notice that?
Well, I did speak at an event in London in November, and I used that question when I was meeting with people, and nobody looked at me funny.
That's good.
So I think with the internet and with people communicating across borders and like all the marketing that happens on social media that's reaching multiple countries, I think it's becoming less unusual.
Good. That's good.
Across cultural barriers.
Boundaries, yeah. So
Yes.
you talk about a 4-step method to better networking. So step 1 is knowing your opening question. Give us more there.
Yeah, so prepare those questions ahead of time and be curious. And you can use mine. What are you excited about right now? Or what are you currently working on? And both of those questions change the conversation, because if someone's working on something that they haven't accomplished yet, it causes them to be a little vulnerable. And they share something with you that hasn't happened yet, which means there's still the opportunity to fail at it, or there's still the opportunity to back out or change your mind. And once you say it out loud, you're really committing to making it happen. And oftentimes it's something we're scared of doing.
Right. Now, we can hear in the background, there's noises and taxis and all that. So you live in New York City, right? So I'm sure
do.
you are probably invited to 80 bazillion networking events out there, right? So when you are discerning what to do, which ones to go to, how do you decide which to do and which to say no to?
It's really hard. In the beginning, I went to 5 events a week, every
Wow.
single night, and I was exhausted. I would not recommend that.
No.
But because I had that experience, I was able to learn which ones are valuable, which ones are not, and what am I expecting to get out of this. And I think being intentional about the audience, who do you think is going to attend that networking event? And if you're looking for clients, then you want to go to an event where your clients are attending, if you understand exactly who your client is. But an even better way to do it is to go to an event where your colleagues are going to be. And when I say colleagues, I want you to think about the people, let's say we're talking about the wedding industry. If I'm a wedding planner, I want to go where wedding photographers hang out.
Yeah.
Or I want to go where wedding videographers hang out, or
venues or caterers,
or florists or bakeries. I want to network with those people because the couple who just got engaged is going to be so overwhelmed. They might not even know wedding planners exist, but they know they need a cake and they know they need a photographer. So those are like the entry points into them needing me. And it creates win-win-win situations when that wedding photographer, for example, can refer that couple to a wedding planner, a bakery, a venue, a florist, and all of that, and say, I trust these people and you need to meet them. It saves them time. And then if they already trust you, like there's so much that can come from those kinds of referrals beyond just the monetary gain of getting that couple as your client.
Yeah, and you're dead on there. I think it's 100% true because in a previous life, in the beginning of the Simplifiers, we actually were wedding planners, and there is nothing more powerful than word-of-mouth referrals from complimentary vendors, photographers, venues, florists, all of that. Because also, as a planner, you make their lives easier. So it actually behooves them to make sure that their clients do get a planner that they know and trust and is super detail oriented, because it makes their life so much easier the day of the wedding. So in that, then when you're strategizing, like, okay, the events that I've got this week that I've been invited to, but I'm trying to figure out which ones I go to or which ones I skip, is there some sort of balance or formula to, right, I'm going to go to this many networking events that help me build my B2B colleague relationships, and then this many events for B2C, where I'm networking with the end client? Do you have any thoughts there?
I think it depends on your business, because if you're that photographer, it's going to be easier for you to do B2C.
Yeah.
But if you're something a little bit more obscure, like a first dance choreographer for the father-daughter dance.
Yeah.
That's nice to have, but it's not, I have to have this thing. And so that might be something that comes up later when couples are getting closer to the wedding and they're stressed and this idea just came up. It's not something they need 6 months or a year before.
Right.
In their minds.
Yeah. And then the relationship that you, the choreographer or dance instructor, has with local wedding planners, that's where the magic is, because then they're like, oh my God, you have to talk to blah, blah, blah. She is so great at this. Yeah.
Right.
And that's where that referral comes in.
If you're the choreographer and you have a hard time initiating that conversation with people, then it's better to spend most of your time networking B2B. And if you're the photographer and you have no problem getting clients, you might want to spend more time B2C, but then have your core group of referral partners that you trust, that you like, that you've worked with in the past to refer that couple to.
Got it. Okay. So let's go back to your 4-step method. So you're there, your opening question. You've pulled yourself away from the cheese board and you've gotten brave to talk to somebody. Let's talk about that really quick. Like, if there are other people and they're sort of in huddles, what do you recommend for you? Do you just butt into the huddle, or is there a gentler, nicer way to do it, or just got to be brave and do the thing?
You have to be brave and do the thing, whether you are walking up to one person who's standing off by the cheese board, who has already taken your position,
Right, that's me.
or standing off by themselves, looking at the ground, not making eye contact with anyone.
Yeah.
Smile before you walk up to anybody,
Yeah.
because you're probably nervous too. And when you're nervous, your body language is closed off. And so make sure you walk up to the person who looks like they need a friend. If you're more comfortable with one-on-one interactions, or if you're comfortable walking up to a group, or if the only option is a group, I usually walk up and insert myself into the circle and say, I don't want to interrupt, keep talking, or keep your conversation going.
Yeah, yeah.
And just listen for a little while. And eventually that person will pause in their story. Everyone will turn to you and ask you what you do, probably.
Which leads us to step 2, right? Which is listen with intentionality. So tell us more about that.
Yes. So one of the things that is going to build really strong relationships from the beginning is the ability to see people in a way that they don't see themselves, or to be able to really just make someone feel heard. It sounds really simple, but so often people will call me out and they'll say, you're a really good listener. And that stands out for them.
Yeah.
And so I think naturally our brains are wired for us to, again, have everything figured out. So an example from when I was a nurse, if someone asked me, what do you do? And I said, I'm a nurse, they would immediately list out every surgery they've ever had, or every nurse in their family, or every time they've been to a hospital, or they say, I don't like hospitals, or I don't like needles.
Yeah.
Whatever their association is with it. And so we do try to have it all figured out.
Yeah.
So when you are just listening and not having that interaction where you're cutting the person off and saying, I know about nurses and here's everything I know. We do that to try to connect with people because we're uncomfortable and we want to be a part of the conversation. But a better way to be a part of the conversation is to really listen. And I love the way that you're listening right now. You're making eye contact with me, you're smiling, you're nodding, and you're letting me know that you understand what I'm saying.
And so many people don't do that. It's so tricky in this day and age. You know what happens instead is they pull their phone out and they're not even looking at you, even at a networking event. I'm like, hello, I'm over here.
Right.
Blows my mind. Yeah. So what happens then when somebody's giving you the obvious body language of my phone's more important than talking to you? What do you do then? Peace. See ya. I'm out.
It depends on whether or not you think it would be valuable to have a conversation with that person.
Yeah.
Because ultimately, at the end of a networking event, you don't want 50 business cards of people to follow up with. You want 5.
Right. And 5 of the right people, not 50 of random people that, yeah.
Yeah, 5 people you can see yourself hanging out with again or working with again.
Or connecting to somebody that you know in your network that could help them be a strengthener for them and their relationships too, right?
Right.
So breaking it down, step 1, know your opening question. Step 2, listen with intentionality. Now, okay, we've gotten to step 3, which is all about becoming a mirror for other people. Tell us about that.
Right. So when you see someone in a way that they don't see themselves, then you know that you're really listening.
Yeah.
And it's called transformational listening because you're listening for the qualities that make them who they are. So when someone tells me I'm a great listener, that has nothing to do really with what I do for a living, like being a publicity strategist.
Yeah.
But they're really acknowledging you have this skill set that makes you unique that I'm noticing because I don't see everyone else doing the things that you're doing.
Yeah.
And so when you're able to give a genuine compliment like that, and that doesn't even really sound like a compliment like, oh, I love your hair, or I love your shoes, or something like that, which you can do as well to break the ice. But when it comes from a place of, I really heard you in a way that you didn't tell me you're a good listener, you just are.
Yeah.
That's when you create that meaningful connection where someone's like, wow, you really paid attention to me.
And again, I think that takes courage, because I think we both, the giver and the receiver, are sitting there in this kind of awkward situation at a networking event, not knowing where the conversation is going to go. And I think it's a volley, right, from one person to the other. And I love what you say about that, is because I think it's true. I think when you notice people's body language, you notice when they're opening up to something and when they're shutting down. And just being attuned to that, I think it's a powerful skill to have.
Right, right. And as you mentioned, body language is so important. It's 93% of communication is nonverbal. So facial expressions, body language, where they're looking. Are they making eye contact with you? Are they looking down at the ground? Culturally, that means different things to different people.
Yeah.
Not every culture thinks that eye contact is a good idea.
Yeah.
In the United States, they do.
Yeah. I have to say, when I first moved to the UK 5 years ago, and I had to start to get used to the double kiss thing, I'm like, oh wow, we're going there, aren't we? That as a cultural thing, I had brand new stranger kissing me on the cheeks. There are things that you have to, the subtle nuances, to get comfortable with. Yeah.
Yeah, and I have a Dutch friend who does 3 kisses, and in New York, it's just 1.
Oh my goodness, that would be super awkward for me, because then I would move my face, and then all of a sudden we're kissing on the lips. So
there's one more.
There's one more. All right,
but to be able to laugh about it when you have those situations is so important, to just distill any negative interaction or awkwardness that might ensue.
Yeah. So let's carry on to step 4 in better networking. You talk about guiding them to do what's next. So tell us more about that.
So with marketing or anything, you need a call to action, because people will take the information or take the interaction with you at a networking event and think, oh, well, that was a really nice person, or that was a great conversation. And we don't know what to do next. And so often we don't know how to ask for help either. And so it's really great for the end of your conversation to be you asking them, what can I do to help you? And it's totally normal for them to stumble over their words, and they're like, I don't know, nobody's ever asked me this before, or I'm not sure. And often at networking events, what people really need help with is finding clients. Or it would be nice to find a client. Or if you've asked the question already, what are you currently working on? And let's say they tell you that they are working on a speech, for example. Because I work in PR, I find a lot of people who want to be public speakers. And they're nervous about it. And so they already told you that, and now you've asked them what they need help with and they don't know. You can go back to that vulnerable thing that they shared and say, you mentioned that you're working on a speech. Do you need to talk to a speaker coach or a event organizer to find out how to get chosen, or a graphic designer to talk about your speaker one sheet and what needs to go onto that? So you can, whatever knowledge you have is valuable to them. And making an introduction takes 10 minutes or less of your time. So this is where overgivers can get in trouble. Because if you ask someone what they need help with and you know how to solve the whole thing by yourself, but it's not what you do in your business, do not spend 3 hours doing it for them, or writing their speech, or on a coaching call with them if it's not what you do. Make sure that you are making the introduction to the right person. And again, that creates that win-win-win situation where everyone feels good, and it's a ripple effect out from there, because they're going to remember that you were the person that alleviated those negative feelings for them about not being good enough to take the stage or to achieve whatever goal it was that they felt vulnerable about sharing with you. Now you've become part of the solution.
Yeah, no, it's very smart. We call it super connecting over here at the Simplifiers, and we do it slightly different, but I love this idea of using this as a method after. So, saying, hey, what do you need? And I know somebody that can help you, and then connecting the day after, via email or whatever. with Super Connecting, we actually do it on site at the event. So, and just make a game of it. So it's like, oh, I just met Tara. Tara's brilliant. She knows PR. Tara, you need to meet Leslie over here. She does blah, 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 blah. And just bring Tara over to Leslie, make that introduction right there. And then, you pull yourself out of the conversation, let them carry on. And, it seems silly, but it's something that I do. It's a game, and it gives me as a doer something to do at the event as well. I don't know. I love to super connect while I'm at the networking event as well.
It's always amazing if you can do that, or if you can bring your past clients to the event with you, then they're like a walking testimonial for you, and you teach them how to super connect you to the right people. It's so good when you can do it at the actual event. Yeah,
gosh, you're giving me new ideas, Tara, because now, I wonder if I could just bring a client with me everywhere I go. No.
Should. Or if you can super connect before the event. So sometimes if you're going to a conference, they have a Facebook group before the actual event. Yeah. If you meet as many people as you can in that Facebook group before you go to the conference, then you can connect them with each other once you get there, because most people are going to that and they don't know anybody.
That is such a good, brilliant idea. One of our gals on our advisory board, Aubrey Nowitzki, I would be remiss to not mention her in this moment. She is like the genius at this. Like whenever she's going to a conference, she will post a picture of herself, on her social media and say, look for me, this is who I am, and blah, 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 blah. But then she'll also tweet out to every single person in the trade show and be like, hey, I'm coming to this booth and I really want to meet you and talk about blah, blah, blah. And this is a picture of me. And really building that connection pre-event to be able to be on site and have those thoughtful conversations. So yes.
Yeah.
It's everything. Yeah.
It is. And leveraging social media is huge.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And imagine, in that kind of process, I'm sure you do this as well. It's, you're able to retweet and help people get more exposure for their business as well. And it helps them expand their reach and their influence also. Yeah.
Right.
So when it comes to the PR that people have gotten, like say, for example, if they've been published in Forbes or, a mention in Cosmo or something like that, is it okay to talk about that at a networking event, or does that seem a bit braggy and weird and awkward? Do you leave that for when they come to your website, or how do you tackle that?
The biggest misconception people have about bragging is that every positive thing you say about yourself is considered bragging. And so if your thing that you want to say about yourself is a fact, you did get featured in Forbes, then it's not considered bragging.
Okay. And so how do you, I guess sometimes our egos want to lean on that. And I'm speaking from my own personal, you want to lean on that of just saying, hey, I know what I'm doing. I'm experienced. But then you don't want to be too forthcoming with it or come off in a kind of weird, cocky way.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So the best way to talk about it is to put it into one sentence. So for example, my opening, elevator pitch is that I was featured in the media every 2 weeks for an entire year.
Right.
So I'm not necessarily name dropping everywhere I've been featured, but every 2 weeks for a year is people think, wow, I want to do that.
Yeah.
How did you do that?
And that sparks that conversation.
Right. So it helps people be curious about what I do instead of saying I do publicity.
It makes a lot of sense. So again, for you guys that are interested in what Tara's talking about, her website, we'll have the links in the show notes, but it's also Tara Rae, R-A-E, Bradford.com. Tara, where do you hang out the most online and on social media? Where can people connect with you?
I'm on Facebook and Instagram most of the time.
Okay, perfect. So we'll put those links in the show notes. That's Tara Ray Bradford. And, we haven't really talked too much about PR. Maybe we'll bring you back on for a second episode later down the line. But you are a publicity strategist and you have a PR checklist. So how to help people upgrade their online experience and appearance online. So we'll put the link in the show notes for that as well. But it's taraRayBradford.com/PR-checklist. So make sure to connect with her there if you need some help on the PR side of things. So this is so fascinating, Tara, and I really, really appreciate you sharing all of this wisdom. And hopefully somebody somewhere is listening and, it's got a little bit more tools and simple practical tips the next time they come into an opportunity to network with others. So a few questions I ask everybody who is on the podcast are these. First and foremost, what's one book or blog that you're reading these days that's either inspiring you or maybe poking holes and challenging your belief system a bit?
The book I'm reading right now is The Power of Habit by Charles Duhigg. And I think it really simplifies how we create our own habits, which has been a game changer for me because I like to change habits. I think we're constantly changing and evolving and getting out of our comfort zone. And one of those comfort zones is the habits that we create every single day and learning to prioritize what's truly important.
Cool. Well, we'll put a link in the show notes for that book as well. So Tara, tell us, who's one person in your network, either a client or colleague, that you just feel is up to brilliant things out in the world? Let's shine a spotlight on him or her and maybe even have her on the podcast in the future. Who would you highlight?
I want to highlight Lisa Linfield. She is the founder of Working Women's Wealth. And she has tons of free resources to simplify money, how to make it, how to invest it, and how to keep it. And so she has worksheets, checklists, a podcast, a blog, and she has a ton of experience as a certified financial planner at major firms in London. Now she's located in South Africa. But she is on a mission to empower 1 million women to make more money and close the gender gap.
Yeah, it's huge. And, I feel like money is the last taboo. And we still, as women, still don't really want to talk about it sometimes. So, yeah, she's the perfect recommendation for somebody to have on the podcast next. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, you'll love her.
Good, great. So I believe gratitude and simplicity go hand in hand. Tell us, what's one thing you're grateful for right now in your life?
I'm grateful for a supportive mentor. I've been lucky, I guess, because I'm good at networking, to go back to the topic of this. But I've been fortunate enough to always have a mentor since I started my business, and multiple role models as well. Yeah. And I don't think I would have made it this far working in a business by myself if I didn't have other people supporting me.
Ain't that the truth? I mean, if you are listening to this, get yourself a business coach or a mentor, somebody somewhere that's a few steps ahead of you that can help you simplify that aspect of your business. Highly recommend, 100%. So Tara, my very last question for you is this. And again, I just want to acknowledge you. Thank you so much for coming on. And what may seem like a simple topic to most people is very scary for a lot of us. So thank you for coming on and sharing your wisdom and simplifying that for us. So someone somewhere is listening to this episode right now, and she's probably getting her makeup on, and she's about to head out the door to another networking event. And she's having that moment where there's like a little bit of a pit of dread in the base of her tummy right now. But she's like, okay, maybe this time will be different. Maybe I'll ask him different questions. Maybe I'll show up differently. But she's still a bit nervous. What's one thing that you could whisper into her ear right now just to encourage her in this moment?
I would say you are remarkable.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Tara, for being on the podcast today.
Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure.